first, I have to welcome all of you for this second Alumni Talks. We had another one a few months ago that was attended by a number of alumni, also other cohorts. And this is another one that was also chosen from the topics that were given by alumni a while back. I want to welcome people from ICLD. I see Miriam and Yol, they are here. My alumni from South Africa countries and from East African countries, please welcome. This is all about us as alumni, and we agreed that we'll be doing this as often as is possible. This particular session, I think it's all about the alumni sharing their expertise and discussions. And as we progress, we have about 5, I think, presenters. One is Dr. Maude from University of Botswana, is also a mentor. We also have Dr. Judy Makira, who is an alumni and also works in Munga, and is also a researcher. We have Paragzai from Zimbabwe, who is also an alumni. We have Munga Kuria, who is a financial analyst and a researcher, and also, we have also Kabwe, who is from South Africa. Next, Miriam. The purpose for these alumni talks are usually 3. One is to share knowledge, as I mentioned earlier. We want to share knowledge amongst ourselves. Alumni, we all have very different expertise and experiences. And alumni, having gone through the ITPs or MPPs or any other training that you may have accessed under the ICLD program, you have learned a lot of things. You have implemented a lot of things in your municipalities or in your local authorities. And we want to hear from you what you have been doing. That is why we say knowledge sharing, because you have some experiences and expertise we do not hold. The second one is about continuous structured learning, like the one we're having today. It's about research. It's about research and the disconnect between researchers, the local authorities, and policymakers. And that has been there for a very long time. I know there's an office not far from where I live. There's in a local authority. They have a very big door, written research and development, but there's no one inside there. When you look at their books, there's not a single budget for 10 bob or even 100 shillings for research. And lastly, exchange of practical experiences. I know a few weeks ago, we were in Dar es Salaam and we're talking about SDGs, and we're talking about how to do research using a community-based participatory research. And those are some of the things that we want to learn from each other. I know we have a lot of experiences here in the alumni, and I am sure next year we will be doing many more alumni talks. They have become pretty popular to many of us. I have learned a lot from these discussions, and I look forward to learning more. Next, Miriam, I think that could be the last. And for those who are joining us for the first time, we have done this is the first year we've done the alumni, 1 year. And we have some milestones that we want to celebrate for the last 1 year. The first is that there was a meeting in Zimbabwe by alumni, organized by alumni in Zimbabwe. We also had another course that was shared between, these are opportunities that are shared through alumni networks by ICLD. We had an accountability for sustainability course, perspective for the public sector, which was between Swedish Institute, the Lund University, and ICLD alumni. And a lot of us actually participated in this and went all the way to Lund University. There's also the ongoing one called Cities of Values, Bilbao City and the University of Judo in Spain, which I'm participating with other guys who are other colleagues who are here. We are, I think, 8 of us from East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, and a bit of, I think Tanzania was not there. So it's ongoing, this one. It talks about cities of values, how you can create a city using values like Bilbao City did. We also have a local democracy academy that is organized by ICLD. There is a call usually when you look at the website or the Facebook or the normal materials we are shared. Please take these opportunities because you get an opportunity. I think Dr. Maude attended one. There's also other colleagues who have attended. On top there, number 5, there's human rights and gender equality in climate disaster displacement is between Lund University, ICLD alumni, and Swedish Institute. I know a couple of my colleagues are attending this course from Kenya and Uganda. It's ongoing. I think they're continuing. They're on the last one should be maybe a couple of months to come. There's also a few weeks ago, we were at Dar es Salaam under the community-based to learn about community-based participatory research for climate action. This is using very unique methodology of collecting data within the communities. We were at the University of Dar es Salaam, and I'm sure most of them are also participating here today. And it is ongoing. I know next year we are trying this tool with some local authorities within East Africa so that we are able to collect data on voluntary local reviews using the community-based participatory research. And we did our first alumni talks a while back. The topic then was localizing the global goals in Africa. Ana Maria Vargas from ICLD took us through some of the examples of tools that are available. And through that, we're able now to do this community-based participatory research, and we are talking about voluntary local reviews as well. And today we are here celebrating another milestone, exploring the disconnect between local governments, policymakers, and researchers. These are very good milestones we have done within 1 year, first year of inception. And I'm sure next year probably have more than one slide talking about the achievements. This must be the last slide, Miriam, if I'm not wrong. Yes, and now we will hear the first speaker, who is Dr. Maude Dikobe. Maude Dikobe is a lecturer at the University of Botswana. She's also a mentor in a program based in Botswana. We were together in the first cohort of inclusive political leadership as a mentor for Botswana. We did the inaugural one, which is 2017. And she's an amazing lecturer. She's an amazing person to talk to, even the talks of this kind of discussions. Dr. Maude is an amazing. Dr. Maude, if you are ready, please, the floor is yours. Continue. Dr. Maude, are you there?
Mute here. Thank you very much, John, and thank you very much to all the alumni and to Joel and Miriam from ICLD. It's such a beautiful pleasure to see you guys post-COVID, and it's just a joy to share some of my thoughts on what causes the disconnect between research and policymakers. And I intended not to make my paper very academic, so we'll just go through some of the facts and then have a reflection questions at the end of my presentation. Next slide, please. Yeah, when we start to explore the disconnect between local government, policymakers, and research, we should first start by looking at the two schools of thoughts, major two schools of thoughts: applied research versus basic research. Applied research, as most of you are aware, is the research that is usually done for big funders, UN, FAO, and you name them. Funders get the findings they want. If somebody says there's malaria in Botswana, you better find the statistics to support that. And when it comes to basic research, which is very common in the academy, we try to avoid recommendations because we feel like it's putting the cart before the horse. So with a basic research, we want to look at the situation and then draw our findings from the situation, not just alluding that there's this problem, therefore we want the following findings. So, and usually basic research is focused more on thematic areas. It's not something that you put everything in one jar and find one solution that fits all. Thank you. Next slide. The major problems causing the disjuncture between researchers and policymakers and the community is that, first and foremost, in Africa, as John has already alluded to, we don't have research funding agencies like it is the case with the EU. Very limited funds that cannot go across the continent, which has 53 countries, if we are to include the diaspora. So you find that even when the research is made, the research is not readily available to the communities, or the research findings are collecting dust in local government offices because the only research done maybe will be a survey done within the municipality, and it wouldn't be disseminated to the other areas. For lack of funding is #1 problem in Africa. And also we have research silos, where you have people who form a group and they'll only do research within that group. And as a result, most research is not disseminated. And in Africa, we have insufficient African academic journals. And on top of that, we don't utilize our indigenous knowledge systems. We still believe that everything is based on print. And because of the rates of illiteracy in Africa, some of the research is never accessed by people who cannot read. And just as with COVID, we lack timely and relevant research. Still now with COVID, all our solutions are coming from outside. We haven't made a concerted effort as African countries to come up with timely and relevant research, and that applies to research that deals with problems in the municipalities. And of course, you are aware as people who work in the municipalities that there's a lot of gatekeeping within municipalities. The people in the municipalities do not make the data readily available to those who want to do research. But you'll be surprised at the speed at which they would give a foreigner a research permit, while a local researcher would have gone to that office several times just asking for that piece of document. And municipalities, I don't think, you'll correct me from your different municipalities. Do our municipalities really invest in relevant research to solve the municipality problems? I'm giving you food for thought as we go along. Next, please. I'm using a lot of the food metaphor. So we had different sources in African cultures. So my question to you as alumni is, what is the secret sauce which can help restore the disjuncture between research and policy? One of the things that I think can be done is that we need a balanced approach by implementers dealing with different scenarios. So we have to find a way to bring both applied and basic research to the foreground. And we need national research funding to address local government issues. And first and foremost, we need community engagement to make research more relevant, translatable, and sustainable. If the research is in English and you are addressing a community in Botswana, make an effort to translate that research into Setswana or into Kiswahili, whatever the scenario might be. And community engagement is defined as the providing meaningful suggestion involving communities affected, and research findings that you involve them in the research findings right from the beginning. You don't do the research and then go hand it over to the community, because if they are not in it, they wouldn't have the buy-in into that. There's something on my slide, Miriam. Nasta something. Okay. And we also have to cultivate close relationship between researchers and representatives from the local governments. Next, please. And finally, something to take home, because I only have 5 minutes. I told you I'm using a lot of food metaphor. Another food for thought. What are you doing as alumni to address the situation? You have been equipped by ICLD to conduct research and to conduct surveys, and you've been trained through the ITP program. Have you ever come with a research that prompted reaction from your local government? That's question number one. Is your work only appreciated if it is monitored by some international organization? Remember the first point I made, that the research gets appreciated if it's funded by UN, food and agricultural communities, and so on. And most importantly, what indigenous knowledge insights can you infuse in your research to make it relevant to your community? And finally, do you think policies fail because communities are left out of the process of their formulation? We cannot make a policy and then just go hand the white paper to the community. We have to involve them in the process of coming up with that policy. Next. Next slide ahead. Okay, with all, no, back to the previous slide, please.
Sorry.
Yeah. Then I think with alumni dialogues or talks, which is very brilliant platform, how can we use the skills and knowledge from ITP to carry out research? I'm grateful to the people who came up with the idea of alumni talks, because we can even have monthly youth dialogues like extending the alumni dialogues to involve the youth, that the youth in your community, you meet with them. They don't have to do the presentations. And secondly, we can have youth debates on pertinent local issues. And for me, as somebody from literature, storytelling as indigenous knowledge system, we need to learn how problems were solved in the past using local solutions. There's a common saying that when an elder dies in Africa, it is like a library has burned down to the ground. So our ongoing dialogues, Alumni Talks, are the step in the right direction, and I appreciate the fact that I've been invited to share this 5-minute rush over thoughts with you. Next slide. Yeah, Leboha. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maude. That was pretty interesting to read about it. And also you had very good insightful thoughts about some of the take homes. We need to ask ourselves these questions. We need to figure out why exactly it's not happening. And some of those questions are actually relevant to what has been happening even some of the councils in Kenya. Somebody need to mute. Somebody somewhere. Don't know who it is. I think they are muted. Okay, now our next speaker is Dr. Judy Makira. Dr. Judy is an alumni. She was actually in my team. She's a lecturer, researcher, and a local government official from Munga municipality. Judy has also attended the course on community-based participatory research in Dar es Salaam a few weeks ago. And I'm hopeful that through that she'll be able, this is Gosemano, please mute. It's Gosemano, I hope that is it. Gosemano, please mute. So Judy, welcome. Welcome, Judy. If you're ready, please, Karibu.
Yes, thank you so much, John. And thank you so much, Miriam, for hosting us, and also to all the participants. And thank you for the nice introduction. The only thing I need to add is that I am a municipal partnership coordinator with ICLD between Murang'a municipality and Uplands Buru municipality. Thank you. I'm happy to be invited. Next slide. So today we are exploring this issue of the disconnect between research and policy making. And I have started my presentation with the need for research. Why do we need research in policy making? What is the significance of research in the policy making process? And it cannot be underrated because evidence from research prove that policy process is important in identifying issues for policy agenda, for informing decisions about policy content and direction, and even for evaluating the impact of policy. We cannot do all that. We cannot do all that whole process of policy making without researching. And therefore, policymakers need access to robust and high quality research when developing policies, and not only that, even when reviewing the existing policies. Next one. This is the next slide. So when we are looking at the process of policy formulation, what comes into mind to me is a whole scattered process, disintegrated process. Every piece is not where it is supposed to be. People have haphazard knowledge on what they need to do. So it can be reflected by these scattered blocks that you see on the screen. These are policy pieces that need to be brought together so that they form a whole policy document and they inform decision making. Next one. This one slide is missing there. The next slide after that. Yes, this one. So what we have there now is a demonstration of the policy pieces that have been brought together to form decision making. So for this to happen, the glue that holds these pieces together is actually research. Research is what creates the gaps that exist in society, so that the policy makers and more so at the local government are able to bring policies and make decisions. So to me, the whole of policy making process is made complete by, first of all, carrying out enough research so that the gaps are identified. And once the gaps are identified, once you know where each piece is supposed to be, you now have a whole policy which is formulated as demonstrated by this complete block. Next one. So having now noted the significance, the role of research, why do we therefore have the disconnect between policy making and research? Why do we have that distance? Why is it that the policymakers do not engage researchers and researchers do research without considering policies that need to be in action? Why the gap? Why do they look like, in quotes, they fear each other? So to answer that question, next slide. This concept is not new. The whole thing of policy making not involving research is not a new concept. And to prove that, in Germany, they have a term, that term that you see, which means resistance of policymakers to accept policy advice from researchers. They also have a term in contrast, that term, that one, that refers to the inability amongst researchers to provide appropriate policy advice. The mere fact that we have terms for each of the group, on one side we have the researchers, on the other side we have the policymakers. We have each of the group has a term that is almost putting blame on each other, tell us that there is a gap, there is almost a silent, harmless conflict that exists between research and also policy making. And therefore, this is the gap that we need to bridge. I'm sure even in other countries, there could be such terms that bring out the gap between policy making and also research. Next slide. So to explain these disconnects, there is almost, like I said, a silent blame game. On one side, it is never spoken. No one says it. But from where we sit as researchers, from where I sit as a local government official, we can bring two and two together and conclude that these two groups of people do not engage each other. And I want to also answer my previous doctor in the previous presentation. She posed some food for thought. She asked, do municipalities in your region involve researchers? Do they invest in research? And personally, in my own municipality, we do not even have a research department. We have no business with the research in policy making. We go for policy making. We do simple public participations. We do not rather than celebrate the research. So what do the policymakers say? Number one, policymaker will say that policy making does not solely depend on evidence, that you do not need any evidence to make policy. You can sit at your desk and come up with policies. Then they also may say that research is not timely or relevant to their needs. And we agree with that because most of the research that we get in our universities are simply too academic. They may not inform any action at the municipality level. They may also say that researchers lack expertise in communicating their research to policymakers, which we all agree. As a researcher myself, once my work is done, the only further I go is either publication in journals or also, they are stored, they are put in the library. So we do not communicate our research findings, not knowing that most of this research that has been carried out is very relevant to policymakers at the municipality levels. There is also difficulties in accessing the research. And I want to pose a question. When last did your municipality visit a local library in a university to access research there? You cannot. It is actually unlocked property. There are no opportunities to build relationships with researchers. So previously, the researchers have enclosed ourselves in the university or academic institutions.
whereas also the municipalities are in their own zone. But I am happy that currently this is opening up. And at this point, I also want to thank ICLD because they are opening up these opportunities. They are funding municipalities to carry research. They are funding researchers to visit municipalities, which is a very great step towards bridging this gap. Then lack of policy literacy exists within the research community. So most of the researchers have no idea about policy making processes. So all these are what the policymakers would say. And this is actually what I also find myself in when I am doing my task in the local government. On the other hand, the researchers may say that policymakers ignore research that they produce, that policymakers do not recognize the role of research, that most local governments do not even have a research component, which is very true. Most local governments do not have, and if they do, the researchers are given other tasks within the municipalities, which they deem more important, but nothing to do with the research that can inform on policy making. Then there is no budgetary or human resource allocation for research. I agree with that because like most of other municipalities, we do not have a budget allocation for research. And finally, research has been too academized and it is disconnected from reality. So this could be the disconnect. This could be the silent blame game that brings about the gap between research and policy making. Next slide. So finally now, what is the way forward? What are the opportunities? Despite that big disconnect, all is not lost. And we all agree what we are doing today is one way because John Gitonga today has brought together researchers, local government officials, and they are looking for a way forward. So there are numerous opportunities to correct the situation and make policies at the local government from a research-informed position. So we can make research accessible to local government, and I'm challenging all local government officials who are here. Can they open a research section in their municipalities? Can they source out for available research that can help in their day-to-day running of municipalities? We have partnership between local government and academic institutions, and I think this is one thing ICLD is doing very well. They just concluded Dar es Salaam community-based participatory research was one case where people came together, local government officials and academia, and we actually did one research together. And for those people who are not there, when we started that community-based research, one person raised up their hand. I don't know whether they are here. And they asked, everyone who is talking today is talking about PhD, is talking about masters. Me, I only work at the municipality level. Is this conference really relevant to me? But by the end of the first day, the same person was the first one to say, I now agree that research and policy making at the municipality are inseparable. You cannot separate them. One informs the other and vice versa. It is also good to establish networks to bring together academic researchers and policy makers. There is need to translate research into a user-friendly form. For example, some of the research that is existing is too complex. How about researchers or research experts at the municipality bringing it down to the level of policy makers? Incorporating research in the whole process of policy making, allowing a variety of approaches to research by universities, e.g. the CBPR, the Action Research, etc. And there is also need for a lot of capacity building on the role of research in local government policy making process. So to summarize this slide, I want to say that these are some of the opportunities that are there. And we need not really wait for people outside. It is us. It is us today who are here today. People from the municipalities, people from academic institutions. Can we start that marrying, coming together and looking for where we can exchange ideas? Next one. So then policy making and research. I was looking at the SDGs and I realized that SDG number 16 has one tier that really talks about the need for strengthening institution. We all know that when we are making policies at our municipalities, we aim at building strong institutions and also effective service delivery. And this is what SDG number 16 talks about. And research will offer the relevant data to achieve or to help this strengthening of the institution. So this SDG is one that can directly relate to the role of research in policy making at the local government. Next one and the last one.
Oh, that was
one final.
Sorry.
So it's all right, Miriam.
No, that was the last one I've got.
Oh, please, one. Summarizing. Can I share that last one with 2 statements only?
Are you able to share?
I think so. Oh, you cannot share. Okay.
I think you can just present it. We'll share with the others when we edit it.
Okay, I don't have it in the mind, unfortunately.
You can share it now. I made you co-host, so if you can.
Yes.
Dr. Judy, are you able to you're able to share it?
Let me see.
Okay.
Can you see?
Yes.
It's actually that one. In my community, we don't leave people without food for thought in terms of 1 or 2 sayings. And to emphasize on the need for research, there are these 2 sayings that one, research has formalized curiosity. It is poking and prying with a purpose. So research is no longer the research for its own sake, that is curiosity, but it is actually curiosity with a purpose. And number 2, without data, you are just another person with an opinion. Therefore, my call is for the municipal or local government officials who are here and the academics, that we come together and do policy making guided or informed by research. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Judy, for that very beautiful presentation. Miriam, you can go back to sharing the next presentation. I think our next presenter is Parazai Munyende from Zimbabwe. He's a researcher. I would like to hear from him as well. Not this one. Oh yeah, this same one. Yes. Please. Mr. Munyende, are you there? Is he on the call?
No, maybe not.
No, I don't seem to see him as well.
Mm.
Okay, I think we can move to Munga. You have the presentation for Munga. Munga is a specialist, public finance management, and he will help us with the presentation. Munga, please, over to you. You have to unmute yourself. You are muted right now.
Once again, how are you all? You can hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Munga Kuria. I am a certified public accountant of Kenya and a financial management specialist. And when I got this topic, I was trying to figure out now, what do I have to say about research? I've actually been trying to venture into the research area. I have worked in the private sector in Kenya as an accountant, and I've also worked in the public service, both in municipal administration and in finance. We can go to the next slide. So this is how I started my presentation. We are looking at what are the emerging urbanization trends. One of the issues coming up in the recent past and over time is the issue of urban poverty. That is one of the considerations that we'll have in this presentation. We have other emerging issues such as urban planning and financing the same, because these are very closely codependent. And that includes the issue of land use planning. Under the mega trends, we are thinking about how do we deal with the rapid urbanization, changes in the global economic environment, the climate change, and all the other things that are coming up. These are the recent trends. And go to the next slide. Now, back to research. We try to figure out how is the globe handling the issue of research. And I came up with this map. You can actually see the countries with the darker green color. These are countries that are spending over 4.5% of their budget on research. And you can actually see the US there. You can see Australia. You can see some parts of Europe. But what is coming out clearly is that, look at the map of Africa. We, other than the northern parts, some slight dots on the northern part, most of Africa is not spending money on research. And this is, we could not raise any data for the same. So it means that with all these issues that I've mentioned in the previous slide, in Africa we have a challenge, and in some parts of Asia, and you can also see the southern part of America there are challenges. Organization and governments are not spending money on research, or they're not prioritizing research and development. Let's go to the next slide. So we're trying to look at what is the relationship between the research, policy, and what is being done practically. Of course, we have seen how unique our continent is and some parts of the world is. So the way forward will be, we should think about how to deal with these urban challenges, and in their complexity, how do we prepare, how do we plan for this, and how do we handle this? Let's go to the next slide. Now, I know Dr. Maude Dikobe talked about types of research. I don't want to dwell so much on basic research and applied research, but I also included another form of research, which is experimental research, which is very much related to the applied research. And I picked we picked two urban challenges. One of the challenges is the rural-urban migration. If a basic research is conducted on this, we just look at the motivation for rural-urban migration. And if you are to do applied research on the same, you look at the socioeconomic forces resulting to this. But if you are to look at experimental research, you look at what kind of programs do you come up with financial assistance to do this. And like it has been said, Dr. Judy Makira has mentioned about it, and Dr. Maude before, is that there has not been any prioritization in experimental research. Another area that I picked was on solid waste management, and I think I don't want to dwell so much on that. We can actually read the write-up. The same thing. Not much has been invested in applied research and experimental research. And that is one of the gaps that we've been able to identify. Let's go to the next slide because of the interest of time. Now, I picked some data from Cities for Children. This is where, and in this case, we've not seen any planning and budgeting, as well as a lot of research has been done, but not so much planning and budgeting has been done on this. And some of the available data that we got was the issue of the number of children that are growing in the rural areas and also in the urban slums. 1 out of 3 comes from the slum areas. We've also seen that there is an estimated 60% of urban residents will be 18 years old in the year 2030 in Africa. That is a time bomb, unless it is well thought. We've also seen that 90% of urban growth will occur in Asia and Africa. and about 35 to 50% of over 1 billion people live in the slum areas are children. Let's go to the next slide. Now, this is another graphical presentation. This is actually a summary of what we've just seen in the previous slide. Children and cities, almost zero budget and planning for children in most of the African cities. And you can see the Africa again there, and the dark, you see those colors. The color is black, very serious situation. The situation is very, very serious. The green colors, this is where we have a lot being done, this is data that is available and it can actually be shared. But you've also seen that there are some countries who have noticeable problems, but at least they are neither here nor there, but some steps are being taken. Let's move to the next slide. Now, talking about the research-informed design and planning and budgeting. Again, I don't want to dwell so much on this. There has to be a lot of effort in handling this and coming up with tools that are sustainable. Someone has just mentioned before that not that some of these research studies have not been done, but kept in drawers and cupboards, and you know, a lot has been done before, but because there has not been concerted effort in funding this, then we find that the situation becomes worse because someone has to redo the whole of this exercise again. Yeah, let's go to the next slide. I know my time is almost up. I just want to make sure that I finish. I am giving an example of budget allocation of research. Is the case for Kenya. In Kenya, we have 47 county governments. This came about as after devolution, and you will find that the government mostly budgets for infrastructure development, which is roads, building, bridges, and hospitals, and also recurrent expenditure like salary and wages. Zero budget for research. Reason: we have a political cycle, for example, in Kenya, every 5 years, the leaders would want to show the public what they have achieved, and whatever they have achieved would always be something that can be tangible, investment like the roads and the bridges we have talked about up there. We've also seen there is low capacity on our elected leaders to understand this topic of research and development, and there has been low collaborative research between urban actors and researchers. Someone mentioned about citizen awareness. A lot of citizen participation is done, but in those meetings, you'll find that nobody talks about investing in research. So there is a gap in that area. Okay, let's move to the last ones. Yeah, I think this is just a summary of what I've just talked. I don't want to dwell so much on this slide. And I think that will be about it. Just go to the next one. Yeah, these are some of the innovation in urban development. And the question is, what impact does the research have? For example, or what impact would research have in urban housing? You see what it will do. On the right side, you said it will link housing issues. Research will also help in environment and climate change, urban strategies, and financing urban infrastructure. I think we'll share this presentation and people can actually go through that. Okay. So proposed way forward: knowledge co-production, capacity building for decision makers, collaborative research, and most important, and this is my last statement, research needs to be financed, needs to be prioritized. It should be part of the budget. We should talk about research and invest money in research. Thank you very much. I think the last one is just a thank you note. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Very grateful. I'll just quickly run through. With the interest of time, I will not do the entire slide. Kabwe is my name. I'm an engineer by profession, and I work for Northridge University with keen interest in research. So I thought I could just pick one or two issues in research in engineering. You can go to the next slide, Miriam. So I think the previous speakers have all spoken so much about research and the disconnect between policymakers and research. So I will not dwell on that. You can go to the next slide. I thought maybe I could also just pick out a few researches that have been done, especially in terms of infrastructure development, because it is a huge thing here in Africa, in Zambia, for developing countries. Infrastructure is a huge part of the budgets and expenditures. So there have been researches that have been done all over the world, like the one that is shared on the screen right now, of ways in which local authorities can utilize certain information from researchers for sustainable development. And that's just an example of one of the research that was done, of which the focus was to come up with a mixed design that was environmentally sustainable. You can go to the next page. So this research really brought out points to show that when you do the construction in a certain manner, you are able to have a sustainable environment. You prevent use of landfills and all of those, that information. You can go to the next slide. When I bring it to a Zambian context, there's been a research that was done by Makalani Mukuni, which talked about the planning cycle on Zambian roads. This research really brought out a lot of points on planning, which is a very good tool that the local authorities can use for their planning in road constructions to avoid these roads that are over budgeted, or you spend so much money on them. But if you follow this research, you are able to see certain points being brought out and certain people being brought in terms of stakeholder analysis. You can go to the next slide. I also personally did the research on analyzing the effects, some factors that affect road construction projects in Zambia. So basically on the copper belt. And in this research, I was able to determine that external human and management factors really did have a huge impact on the success of the project. So when a local authority is coming up with a planning for development, when they put into consideration these aspects, they're able to plan better for their construction site. So this is I just picked a few just to bring out that we do have such researches that are there, but like the previous speakers had spoken, it's most of them are considered as just for academics, and they're packed and no one has access to them. And when you do want to access some of them, you have to pay, so there's no funding. But we do have research that has spoken, that have been done concerning even engineering, even construction, and can be reached by all of us. So that was just to talk a little bit about construction and engineering. And at this point, I think we don't have much time, but we can allow for a few comments and questions that people have before we can ask Joe to just conclude for us. So if you have any comments, I think this is the time that you can proceed with those. You can raise your hand. I'll be able to see that. If you want to speak, then you can unmute yourself and just say something. Comment. If there are none, we can go to, okay, Virginia, there you go. You can please comment.
Thank you, Kabwe. I'm from Zimbabwe and with the Midland State University, and the issue of this disconnect is a very real, but I'm happy to inform or to that in Zimbabwe there have been some effort where the ministries of local government and the Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education have come together. We had a big meeting at the University of Zimbabwe, and universities were allocated local authorities to work with. So that kind of interaction is now there. Although I can't say it's working perfectly because people working in silos or thinking that the university wants to investigate what we are doing. For an example, I manage a Center for Public Policy Solution at the university, and we've got MOUs that we've signed with local authorities and also the Minister of Provincial Affairs. So under this again, relationship with the Gweru City Council, where the university is located, the municipality where the university is located, we have formed technical committees where if looking at the functions of the local authority, like water, wastewater, refuse, and we formed these technical committees, which are comprised of university staff and local authority staff, and we do a lot of research around those areas as the technical team. So briefly, that is what I wanted to share.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you very much for that. Joseph, I see your hand is up. Can we agree to just keep the comments very short so that we can have as many as can, and then we can conclude? Joseph, please. Joseph, are you there? No, he's gone. Okay, Edwin. Where is everyone going?
Yes, I'm
Oh,
here.
okay.
Yeah, it is just a comment. This is a very wonderful alumni talk, and I've loved it so much myself because we are still learning. We are learning on the same platform. But what I want to say is this: that I suggest in future or going forward, whenever we have such kind of talks, because they are very important, we invite relevant people whom the topic affects. For example, this one is affecting local authorities. Maybe we bring the permanent secretary, we invite the permanent secretary to be on the platform because those are influencers. Yeah, Zambia invites a permanent secretary. Every country that is represented invites a leader who is an influencer so that they get this directly, because it is the PS who can actually spearhead the changes, or if there's no research department, it is the permanent secretary who is able to do that, to make recommendations to the government. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Edwin. Joel, your hand is up.
Yeah, thank you. I was just curious. Thank you so much for all the wonderful presentations and the analysis so far. I was just thinking, since there's a lot of people here who have been involved in ICLD projects, and John and Maude has been working as mentors and are currently working as mentors for teams. I'm just curious if there are any ideas based on your own projects or in your local government right now, like how research could be made useful, like from the very start and the outset of your project, because we're currently struggling a bit with trying to make research relevant for the local governments at the very outsets of the programs. Just based on your experience in the ICLD programs, it would be interesting to hear some reflections about how it could be relevant from the start.
Thank you. Lorette?
Yeah, I think okay. I was
sorry,
gonna
yeah, go
say,
ahead.
I think the idea of having case studies is a very good idea, which is something done by the Knowledge Center. But they should source out African scholars to come up with the case studies, because a couple of case studies that I've looked at is just like punching numbers or talking about something after interviewing 2 or 3 people. Thank you. That's what I'm thinking of now, especially with the Human Rights Network cohort now. Some of the human rights issues cannot be understood from an outside perspective. We'll need a scholar from that particular side to be able to write on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maude. Lorette.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm Lorette Musimimana from Rwanda. As I wrote in the chat, I'm just a new graduate from ICLD Women's Political Leadership Program. I'm so happy to join the team, and as I said in the chat, the research is very crucial in this, in finding evidence-based solution. And I just want to give a thought or advice. in the countries where we have decentralized system, it would be easy to do the research based on our municipalities. So it's just a matter of being dedicated into it. And this talk was very important for me because the participants of our cohort was, each one had a project, submitted it, and I am very sure each one had to do the research before coming into a project. So I think if we put effort into it, in our own municipality, we would come up with a result that will help us to solve the issues that our citizens face. Thank you very much. That was my comment.
You're muted, Kabwe.
Sorry. We can have our last two comments and then we can go to Joe. So Dr. Judy, I see your hand is up. We can have Dr. Judy, yeah.
Thank you, Kabwe. I wanted to respond to what Joel asked about how best from our experience we can make research relevant so that our local government would by in quotes, would appreciate and acknowledge it. And one way is doing a lot of action research. And in this action research, the participants to be the community through the local governments. So when action research is touching on the community, and this is done through the local government, the people in the community through the municipalities will appreciate it. Another example is forums like the just concluded community-based research, where the participants were people from the municipality and also from the researchers. And finally, like somebody said, I want to insist also on the need to bring in researchers at the local government gatherings or conferences. So when we bring them together, they are able to come up with research that is tailored towards the needs of the municipalities, the needs of the local governments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you so much for your participation, everyone, for the beautiful presentations. Very helpful. I think at this point, I'll ask Joe to just speak to us and then we'll close. Joe.
Thank you so much, Kabwe, and thank you for the questions and the comments and the presentations before in this talk. I'm from the ICLD Knowledge Center. My name is Joel Vanershan, and at the Knowledge Center, we're sort of like an experimental kitchen trying to find that secret sauce that you're talking about, trying to connect researchers to practitioners in our programs. And I think we have a good sort of arena to do that, since we are engaged with practitioners in all our programs, and we do have connections with a lot of researchers. But you know, as Judy Makira said, sometimes it's like the different groups trying to talk a bit different languages. They're doing a bit of a blame game sometimes. So it's easy for both for researchers to try to make the research accessible and relevant, not have these 30 pages reports, rather like concrete bullet points, suggestions, input to processes, and also for local governments to sort of understand what researcher can bring to the table and be ready to have a long-term relationship and discussion with the researchers in the programs as well. I think the input from all alumni is a very valuable resource for the Knowledge Center in the future development also of how we work. We're always trying to adapt, do things better, to change our routines if we can try some new ideas for how to make researchers and practitioners meet in our program. So for everyone who has some suggestion, because it's about your local governments in the end, how can research be made more relevant to you? If you have any input, if you have suggestions for sort of new formats we can try, or for how research can be made more relevant to you, we're always there to listen and to try new ideas. I'm very happy to have this discussion today, and thanks a lot to John and to Kabwe and to everyone who's been part of arranging this. So thank you so much for today.
Thank you so much, Joel. Thank you. So I think we've all heard that we can connect, we can link with ICLD in terms of research and just see how this helps us as municipalities and as public academic institutions, how we can bridge that gap. So this is just one of the ways we are talking, we're dialoguing, but we can do more. So I thank everyone of you that came through for the beautiful presentations, and let's keep communicating, let's keep chatting in our groups. We have emails, and let's contact ICLD and let's see how we can best improve our institutions. So I'm grateful for everyone who came through. Miriam, are you there? Can you say one or two things just to close us off?
Yeah, sure. You had summed it up quite well, but just from all the summary of all the alumni activities this year, it's been really great to be working with all of you, and I hope you've had the opportunity to partake in talks like this, but also in the different courses that we've offered throughout the year, and we really hope that we can continue this work and these forms of communication in 2023 as well. So thank you for your time today, and I really enjoyed this talk because I think it is a challenge getting researchers and local governments to speak that same language, and it's something that we struggle with at ICLD too. So it's nice to hear the struggles from your side as well, and we hope that we can work together in the future to solve some of these mysteries and challenges. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So thank you, alumni. It's been a great year. So many plans for 2023. We hope everyone will still be there. We'll have your inputs and then we'll forge forward. So yeah, it's good to see all of you. Good connections, good links. So a few minutes for you to just say your byes and everything, and then we go. So you can unmute yourselves. Augustine, you can unmute yourself and speak.
Thank you, Kabwe.
Thank you.
It's a good discourse. It's a good discourse and a good learning experience. I'm hoping that we're going to have many more.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank you,
Thanks
everyone.
a lot, everyone.
Bye. Have a nice day. It was great
Bye.
to see you. Bye.
Wish you a
Bye.
Christmas.
Thank you,
Wish you a Merry
Kabwe. Great
Christmas, all
job.
of you.
Thank
Well
you.
done.
Bye-bye.
Bye.